Alright, welcome back to the Scimax channel. Today is a continuation on my series of videos on writing and tools that I've built into Scimax to make writing in Emacs a better experience for me. And better means easier, faster, I can get to what I want when I want it. And so I write a lot. I write almost every day. And the writing is, things that I work on in the day, maybe code snippets that I'm trying out, ideas that I want to capture, papers that I've read, meeting agendas, meeting notes, etc. So all day, every day, I'm probably putting something in my journal most days that I'm working. And so I wrote scimax-journal to help me do that, and today I'm going to show you sort of what it looks like. I'm not going to show my actual journal, but I'll show you a local journal here. So what kinds of things do we need, or do I want in a journal? I want to be able to press a couple of keys and get to today's entry so that I can just, anytime from anywhere, get right to it. And so I need an easy way to make a new entry, and I want an easy way to open an entry for some date. So if I want to see what I'm doing yesterday, I want it to be easy to get there, and I want to be able to open a file or open a heading in the journal, and I want to be able to navigate back and forth in the entries. So I'll give you a little preview of that. And then I want to have easy search. So Swiper is one of my favorite searches. This will search anything that's open. If I've had Emacs running for a few days or weeks, then every buffer that has a journal entry will be open, and I can just Swiper search right in it. And if it's something older, then I might want grep or AG, the silver searcher. And then there's this agenda style searching that we'll see if it actually works. And finally, I have one master main journal that I use all the time for everything. But some projects I want project-specific journals. So that's what I'll show you here is a project local journal that is in here. So I never remember all of the commands. I only interact with my journal through a Hydra menu. And so I'll take a look at that. I have a whole system of Hydras built into Scimax that I start by pressing F12, which I've bound to caps lock. And then I can look down here. There's a bunch of them. I think it's under applications, and then under applications there's J. So F12AJ gets me to my journal. You could bind that to something else, but I do this like 100 times a day, so I don't even think about it. It's just like caps lock AJ, and then I get to this journal menu. So it's organized by swiper searching, grep searching, ways to open it, navigation, and then the agenda. So normally what I would do is just type F12HAJ, and that will open the current article or current entry of the day. And it doesn't prompt me for a file name. You can see down here what it's done. Let's see, it's probably a little bit tricky to see, but it creates a year and a month and a day and then a file inside of that. So let's look at how it's organized. All of this is automatically created inside the journal directory, which is a variable that gets stored. And actually, this is specified in this directory local variable. So this is how I get a project-specific journal is this directory local variable. And that means anytime I'm anywhere in here, if I type F12AJJ, then it just takes me directly to this video or this heading. And if I go to AJ and I want to open a specific day, then I just press E and I get a calendar here, and I can use the calendar to pick another day. So let's say I want to add an entry on the 14th, then I navigate to it, press enter, and this is a new entry that I can work in for that. And if you look at the calendar, you can see that any day that's orange has an entry and any other day has no entry. So I just started this one today, so there's just these couple of entries. All right, if I'm here and I go here, I can go to previous. That will show me the previous day, and next we'll navigate back. So it's easy for me to just use N and P to navigate through these entries like that. All right, and then here I just have a little shell script that redirects the output of ls into listing.txt, so there's an extra file in here. All right, so let's get back to the notes here. So we have an easy way with a Hydra menu for making new entries, opening entries, and we can also open a file or open a heading. So let's go to this. If I look under F, I can open a journal file. And this will list all of the files that are in here, and then I can just select one to open it. And these are the output of what was listed. And I can also jump to any entry in there, or any heading. So if I press H, this will give me a list of all the headings that have been created. Let me see what did I not save this one? So A, J, H now will show the two headings, and I can jump directly to one of those headings. So all of those are pretty helpful when you've accumulated a lot of these entries, to be able to jump to a heading in the journal, jump to a file, jump to an entry by date, next, previous, etc. So now let's look at searching. So a lot of times I don't really know exactly what this open heading and open file are. A very simple kind of search where you just rely on ivy and completion to narrow down to the heading that you want. But that's limited to headings, and this is limited to file names. If we want to use search in the text, then we have a couple of options. And there are a couple of options because Swiper only works on open buffers, so it will have to open all of the buffers first in order to work. And if you have hundreds of entries, like I have many years of these, it's not a good idea to open all of those buffers just to be able to search. And the grep and Silver Surfer or Silver Searcher here don't do that. So let's look at AJ and let's look at the swiper commands. We can use a range of dates, or the last week, or the last month, or the last year. So in searching, one of the concepts I have around search is that you want to define a scope. And you want the scope to be as small as possible so that you're not doing too many searches. But you want it to be big enough to make sure you capture what you want. So this one might actually be tricky because the last week, I don't remember if that includes today or not. So let's just find out. If I do SW, oh, it does. It includes 1012. These are all of the lines in the file, and so you could start narrowing it down and see, there we get to listing, and if you press enter, it will jump to the file where it was. It's not super interesting to look at the month and the year, but basically this opens the last 7 days of journal entries, or the last month, or the last year. And it's pretty similar if you look at the grep. You can grep in the journal. I see I have some error here that these two things are repeated, so maybe I'll remember to fix it. But let's try grepping a range of dates. And this should prompt me for, nope, guess that's not working quite right either. So let's try AJ, let's do SR. This will ask me for a date, so let's say we want the first date to be the 11th and the second date to be the 15th. Then we can search all of the entries that fall in that range, which is pretty handy. All right, and then here's another way we could think about this in terms of agenda style searching. So let me open one. Let's go to today, and let's mark this one as to do. And then go back. If I want to search this agenda, then we have, let's do it on the whole thing. So I would just press AA, and this will give me the agenda list that we want to use. And let's say I want to find items that are to-do entries. So I might just press T, and this will give me now an agenda for all of my journal articles that have something like that. And let's go back to this one, and let's give it a tag of say journal. And I'll close it. And now if we go AJAA, I can also do a search for things that are tagged. So we could search for keywords, or we could maybe match a tag. So let's press M, pick journal, and we have one entry that's tagged journal in here. So this is a convenient way of using a journal as part of an electronic notebook inside a project, where you can have independent to-dos for a project, or different kinds of tags, or different kinds of searches. And I'll talk about Scimax Notebook in another video later that expands the idea of using a project and a set of work files to document it. All right, so let's take a look at how I have this set up and what happens in there. So this is a Emacs Lisp file that lives in Scimax, and it's just my journal commands for it. The way we're able to navigate and search through the dates is I use an AVL tree. Let's see what AVL tree is. If you want to check out the library. All right, so AVL tree is a balanced binary tree that is what I use to store the data structure in. And that allows me to easily insert a sorted and maintain a sorted list of dates. The journal is kind of registered as a projectile project, so some of the tools that we use are just building on top of projectile, which is a fantastic project management or project library. And we set some variables for where the default location is. We have a cache that stores the entries in, so it's easy to navigate them. And there's a function that you can set up to run on a new entry. So you might use this to insert a template or something like that. I always start with an empty work file, which is sort of all I want. Then here we have some functions for creating and maintaining the cache. So right here is a function that just prints the tree to a temporary file that is defined by the root directory and the name. And then there's a function for reading the cache. And so this is one of the great things about Emacs Lisp and some of the data structures. We print the data structure to a file here, and we read the data structure from a file here. And this is just a little hackiness to make sure that local variables are defined inside the file. All right, so then I guess we could see what's here. Let's run this one over here. Scimax-journal describe. This will give me some information about my journal. I have 2 entries. They're at these 2 places, and this is where that cache is stored. So if you're curious about that, you can find it. Here's a function that generates the tree. So it loops through the files here and looks for things that match our year, month, day pattern. It's not a very sophisticated match. And then we create a tree. And for when we create the tree, we have to define a function that says what order the entries should go, and that's just based on the date. So we read the date from the file name, and this makes it be sorted, and then you can enter entries into the tree. All right, so that's all of that. Here is a function that I use in the calendar to make the entries, the days that have entries, have a different color. So this will just mark entries when there is something there, and it leaves them normal otherwise. So that's done down here. To open a function, we just give it a date string, and optionally a prefix arg that tells it whether to use the global journal or not. I've been showing you a local journal, and you can tell it's a local journal because it has this local here at the top. And if I was to try to use my global one, then I would do it like this. I think this is the one that is in my my regular journal down here. And so you use a prefix to escape the local journal in case you want to get out of it. The other way to get out of it is just leave the directory where that local variable is defined. All right, there is an entry, a function to delete an entry. We have open, go to file, open heading. These use a bunch of Ivy functions that I wrote where you can jump to a heading in a directory. And here we set the default directory to be the journal. And here we're obviously using some projectile find file functions, and this one is just opening the root journal. All right, the next and previous entries just work on the AVL tree, the balanced binary tree, and that lets you go back and forth in the entries, and then once you find one, it just opens it. Let's see, I can't remember the last time I refiled an entry. This is mostly to take an entry and move it to another file. I don't use it a lot, but I guess one of the users of scimax thought it would be helpful, so it's in here. All right, then the search functions use grep on some set of the functions. So the grep one is simple. We just grep every file in the journal root, and this is how that one's set up. For the rest of them, we need to be able to get a set of entries. So we have a way of here of saying give a date at T1 and another date at T2, and then select all the entries that are between them. And so that's what this does using the common list loop feature. It just goes through every entry, and if these things are true, then it collects the entry. So basically, if an entry is between these two, then it gets collected. All right, dead grep is something I tried out for a while. It's a really fast, interesting one. Let me show you what it looks like. Scimax-journal dead grep. Let's do list. So here it is going to show you all of the functions. Actually, this one maybe isn't limited to, oh, this is looking in the entire scimax channel one. So these are all the places that I had the word list in here. So if you like the way dead grep works, it's a nice package you can install from Melpa now. Then the swiper searches look kind of like this. So we have a range here that we can choose, and then we run the swiper commands, and then we choose from the candidates what comes out. And then to get last week, we just specify this swiper range function and specify like a week ago to today. And last month is a month ago to today. This T1 and T2 can take anything org mode knows how to interpret in org read date, so we can do things like today, minus 1 month, minus 2 months, and so forth. And this will get expanded in the right way. One problem with this is it does only work when those entries are open. So if you choose a year, then you potentially are opening 300 plus files to do the swiper search on. And then with the agenda, we have the same idea. We get a list of agenda files, but here we temporarily let the org agenda files be the entries that fall in this range, and then we just run org agenda. So this lexical binding changes the org agenda to only look in the files in your journal. Let's see. So that can be large because and slow because it does open all the files to parse them and search them. It'd be interesting to think about using orgql in this context so that you could write kind of structured queries. So again, these are just doing this general function and specifying what range of dates we want. And then the grep functions are kind of the same idea. We define some files, some ignores, and then try to call grep on those specific ones. So again, here we're looking at say a date from a week ago and the date today and so forth. All right, and then at the end here we have the how to get a local journal. So I wrote a function for this and it automatically creates that DIRS local file that I showed you. And then I think here at the very end is where I define the Hydra function, the Hydra menu, and I just have them sorted in columns. Here there's a swiper column, a grep column, the open column, navigation, and the agenda column. So that's how I use Scimax for journaling, and it is something I do many times a day. And I access all of the functions through this, quick. I press caps lock with my pinky, AJ, and then I get one of these where I can choose something to do. So here I have the delete entry in here. So that's it for the Scimax journal. It is something I write in on a regular basis, and as we proceed through this writing sequence, I'll talk about maybe Scimax Notebook and how all of this is indexed into OrgDB in the next couple of videos. So thanks for coming, and I will